Hola Year 10. So continuamos con las fiestas. Continue with fiestas, with festivals. Y hoy vamos a estudiar. So today we are going to study. Now the question we're looking at, I've muddled up here. Familia, ¿cuáles celebras con fiestas tú? So see if you can, maybe by looking at our objectives, to be able to describe what you usually do for your birthday and Christmas, and say what you did or got for your birthday last year. And in future years, perhaps you can look at the future as well, you might in your own writing today. See if you can use that as a clue as to unjumble this question. Okay, so maybe you paused and had a go there. So it should say, ¿cuáles fiestas celebras con tu familia? Which festivals do you celebrate with your family? Okay, so we're going to entender algunas fiestas españolas and understand a little more about Spanish festivals. So last 3 hours last week, you looked at some different Spanish festivals. So this topic of festivals and celebrations is all about looking at Spanish festivals, but also how you celebrate celebrations as in your families or in your house or in our country, what's normal. Okay, so you can put las fiestas en casa and martes el 16 de marzo if you're working in your books, and then let's continue. So just going to quickly talk about how this topic is assessed, because this is one of the topics that, unlike others like school, where it will come up equally in all exams, it isn't equally assessed everywhere. So far, it has never yet been assessed in the writing exam. No paper has ever asked any year group to write about festivals and celebrations in detail in the 50, 100 or 150 word length, okay? Usually if it's in the writing paper, it's just in the translation. So reading a paragraph about how somebody celebrates their birthday and what they're going to have for their birthday next year, what they had last year, that sort of thing. So bringing the tenses and translating that. Mainly because it'd be very difficult to write 150 words about what you do for your birthday. It's not that detailed. You can't bring in the pros and cons like you can with topics like the environment or holidays, okay? So it doesn't mean it will never, but it means we can bear in mind the kind of angle we can look at with writing. In terms of reading and listening, it's assessed as usual. So you need to know plenty of vocabulary related to different celebrations and festivals. So you could get a listening piece on some festivals in Spain. And if you know some background knowledge on those festivals, that will help you with that listening piece. Or it could be a reading of somebody talking about what they do, usually for Christmas, something like that. So reading and listening, it comes up as much as the other topics. Speaking then, it is covered in all three parts. You could pick a conversation on this topic, and I'm going to explain in the lesson in class next week what that's like, but basically usually it's about celebrations rather than festivals when it's in the speaking. So the conversation has a little on that. I'm going to look at the end of this lesson a little too. Role plays and photo cards we're going to look at next week, some examples, and again that's mainly about birthdays and Christmas. So you're unlikely to have a picture of La Tomatina or San Fermin festival or something and then be asked to describe what's going on and talk about Spanish festivals. That's not as common as a picture of a birthday party and then describing that, because it's easy to bring in tenses in those contexts. What would you like for your birthday? What did you do for your birthday last year? And so on. Okay, so just wanted to give you a bit of a background into this topic so you know where we're going with the next couple of lessons and how you need to prepare yourself with this topic. So the conversation questions for this, what we're going to be able to answer by the end of this topic, so over today's double hour and next week's triple, are these here. So what we normally do for your birthday, the past on your birthday, and there's ideal birthday conditional, talking about whether or not you prefer to celebrate your birthday with family or friends. So there's 4 questions on birthdays, just 1 on talking about Spanish festivals. So for that one, it's good to know at least one festival in Spain, or you can talk about a music festival. talking about whether or not you celebrate Easter and what you do. And again, that overlaps with birthday, similar vocabulary to a certain extent, 1 or 2 extra pieces we need to know. Just being no vocabulary like celebrate, family, food, that sort of thing. And then how are you going to celebrate next Christmas? Same thing with birthday. It's a lot of an overlap of vocabulary, okay? With role plays, we're going to look at these in more detail later on, like I said, next week, but this is the kind of thing, again, you can see that you need to be able to say, so what you do for your birthday, who you celebrate with, where you went last year for your birthday, asking your friend if they like parties, saying you'll go to a party on the weekends or future, why you like parties or present you had last year, and what they'll wear. So you can see a lot of that overlaps with the conversation questions. If you've prepared these answers well, that will support you with the role plays. Okay, so jumping then into vocabulary to cover all of that, and looking at our question, ¿cuáles fiestas celebras con tu familia? This word celebras, you celebrate, comes from the verb celebrar, to celebrate. So let's make a note of that as well as the question. And I want you to write down, how would you say I celebrate and we celebrate? So pause the video and work out those. So if you were sitting flummoxed, we need to remember that it's take off the AR, add a new ending. So for I verbs, we always had O, and for we verbs in the present tense with AR, it's amos. So celebro, I celebrate, celebramos, we celebrate. So if we were talking about which festivals you celebrate with your family, that could be an extension question, perhaps in a photo card. Then you might say, en mi familia, con mi familia, celebro la Navidad. Además, celebramos Semana Santa, los cumpleaños de toda mi familia, and so on. Okay, so let's see how many of these festivals or celebrations, rather, we can work out in English. Okay, so write the Spanish and then see how many you think you know. So you will know a couple, but obviously there are going to be a few like Nochevieja, Nochebuena, that are completely new to you. Okay. Okay, so let's go through these. So Navidad, it's Christmas. Semana Santa means literally Holy Week, and it's how they say Easter. Pascua is also the word for Easter, because Easter is a massive celebration in Spain, Spain being a very religious country, and they think about the whole week, the events leading up to Jesus' death, so that's why it's Semana Santa. Los cumpleaños, obviously birthdays, so we celebrate birthdays, celebramos los cumpleaños. Nochevieja means New Year's Eve, okay? Literally means old night. So it's the old night, the night, last night of the old year. Nochebuena means good night, but that's actually Christmas Eve. I guess it's it's the good night of the year, isn't it? Because we get the night before Christmas, excitement and presents. You could try and think of it that way to help you remember what it means. Fiestas religiosas just mean religious holidays. Obviously, that's what there are a lot of in Spain, and we have them in the UK as well. So Christmas and Easter are both a religious holiday, so perhaps you don't celebrate, perhaps you do. And then El Año Nuevo means New Year, so perhaps you celebrate that in a different way. So it could be Jewish or Hindu New Year, Chinese, whatever it is. Or you could say, no celebramos nada, we don't celebrate anything. No somos religiosas, we're not somos religiosos, sorry, we are not religious, okay? So there's a few things you perhaps do celebrate or don't. Maybe there are other fiestas, other celebraciones that are important to you. Hay más fiestas importantes para ti, and if there are, make a note of them in English and just ask me over Teams what the Spanish is if you aren't sure of it or can't find it, so that you are able to talk about other events that happen. Okay, we're going to go over a couple more now, so they might cover some of what you celebrate. Okay, so you're going to use these images to help you work out what all of these mean. Most of them are quite straightforward because they tell you the date, el 5 de noviembre, 1 de marzo, and so on. Okay, so what I want you to do is write the Spanish and write the English of what it is, in what celebration that is, and they are all covered by one of these images. That should give you a clue which one's which. Okay, so let's go through those then. So we've just got the 5th of November, Pancake Day, all the different UK national days. I haven't put the dates in the English there because they're all nice and straightforward. 1st of March, 30th of November, 17th of March, 23rd of April, Christmas Day, Christmas Eve. So we've learned what that is previously, Noche Vieja. Ramadan, Halloween, then literally that means Day of Witches. That's how it's translated. And then El Día de Pascua is Easter Day. Okay. And that is the Sunday between this 22nd of March and the 25th of April. A Sunday then is when it usually takes place. Okay, so we've looked at some labels now for some festivals, some celebrations, so you could tell me which you do, but now let's look at what people do during those festivals. So you've got 6 phrases here, all using se with a verb. So when you have se followed by the 3rd person spelling, so if I look at the verb beber, for example, to drink, the he, she ending is an e. When we put se before it, it kind of is it's what we call fancy phrase, which is more A-level phrase, is called a passive voice. What basically you're saying is you're not talking about anyone specific. It's that translation like one would do this, one does. We don't usually use one in everyday English, so you could translate it as you, but you're not telling them you do it, it's you in general. So I might say something like, oh, at Christmas, you have a big meal with your family, you put up a tree, and I'm not telling you to do it, it's that you in general, okay? So this is a nice higher level structure you can use in your writings rather than speaking. Rather than saying at Christmas, I do this, you could say at Christmas in the UK, se, and whatever it is, se visita, se come, se da, and so on. So write out these and see if you can work out what each of them mean. So there should be at least one thing in each line, like comida, you might have gone with haces perhaps, but you remember comida, you might have forgotten bebe, but you might remember vino, might remember baba, not fiesta, whatever it is. So hopefully there's one thing in each line which will help you be able to match them up. Once you've done that, then the last list of vocabulary, we've gone over a lot of vocab for now, and then we're going to look at birthday specific, is these for Easter and Christmas, okay? Okay, so we've got them matched up here. So say hace una comida, you make a meal, say bebe vino, you drink wine, and so on. Obviously you could adapt these depending on what you do at different celebrations. Then we've got Christmas tree, Easter eggs, put up Christmas lights, go to church, then Christmas cards and Christmas dinner. Okay, so that you've got plenty of vocabulary there, so that if I asked you which festivals do you celebrate, ¿cuáles fiestas celebras con tu familia, that question from before, you could tell me which you celebrate and tell me something that you do at one of those festivals or celebrations. What I'd like you to do now is pause the video and not necessarily write anything down, I just want you to speak. I want you to come back to that question, ¿cuáles fiestas celebras con tu familia? And I want you to just, using that vocabulary, say a few sentences, just having that vocab in front of you without writing any of it, writing it down. Just do a speaking practice here. So giving you an example, I could say something like, con mi familia celebro muchas fiestas. Celebramos la Navidad, Semana Santa, todos los cumpleaños y otras fiestas religiosas. And then I might say something like, para la Navidad, for Christmas, para la Navidad, se hace una comida muy grande. We have un árbol de Navidad en casa. Vamos a la iglesia y normalmente mando cartas de Navidad. Me gusta mucho la cena de Navidad porque es deliciosa. So I just expanded a little there. I turned the mandar to send into I send. I used we go to church. I said about the Christmas dinner being my favourite, or that I like it a lot because it's delicious, that sort of thing. If you want to record your answer and send it, fantastico. Or you could write it down, but I just want you to do a little practice of making up a little paragraph on the spot spoken, okay? Right, muy bien. It'd be great if I can hear any of those, but no pressure. It's important every now and then stop and just speak some Spanish, putting things together, okay? Let's now have a look at los cumpleaños. Okay, what we're going to do is cover some prior knowledge vocabulary that will help us with this topic, and then throw in some new vocabulary, and all of that together should mean we can answer 4 of the questions from the conversation list. So what we normally do for our birthday, what we did last year, because it's the same vocab, we're putting the verbs in the past. Do we prefer celebrating birthdays with our family or friends? And then what our ideal birthday would be. Now we're going to look at a bit more at the conditional next week in class, so we won't cover this so much today, but lots of the vocabulary we can use. So when we're talking about our ideal birthday, it's going to be the same sort of activities maybe that we normally do, but we'll look at the conditional tense with it next week. So what I'd like you to do now is to make a list of any of this prior knowledge you did not remember. So have a look at it. If you can't remember any of it, write the English down, and when we go through it, write the Spanish, because all of this vocab we have done before and we can just recycle it and use it in this topic. Okay, if you want to make a list of all of it again, you can, but you don't need to, because we have covered all of this vocab before. Okay, so don't worry if you've forgotten some, that is normal. So the verb to go, we have ir, I go is boy, and we go vamos. Remember, that's an irregular verb. We need to know all the parts of that because we use it for the future tense. Remember, so I am going to go would be voy a ir. We are going to go, vamos a ir. I am going to eat, voy a comer, and so on. Okay. To go out, we talked about in the free time topic, is salir, but it's irregular when you make it in the I form, salgo. Okay. Hopefully remember to have is tener, and the irregular I have, tengo. We've learned I celebrate today, so it's prior knowledge just from 5 minutes ago. Celebro, I prefer, prefiero. To cook, cocinar. To eat, comer. To spend time with, pasar tiempo con. Than is que. I put that than there because we're going to use it when we're going to say I prefer to spend time with my family than my friends. Okay. Con mis amigos or mis amigas, depending if it's a group of all girls, and then a un restaurante. Okay, oh, it's taking my tea off there. There we go. Okay, so make a note of any of those that you had forgotten. Now let's look at our new vocabulary, or there are 1 or 2 of these words you might have seen before that you might have forgotten that I didn't put on the other list because they're less common. Okay. So how many of these can you guess the English for? So you're going to write down the Spanish and then see how much of the English you can work out. Okay, so off you go. Okay, so un pastel you may have seen in the food topic, but it's not one we talked about a lot, but it means a cake. Una fiesta, obviously now we do know it means a festival or celebration, but it's also translated as a party. So llevar, we will come across in the school topic. So we did do it last year in year 9, but our school topic was we were doing just as we were going into the first lockdown. So it's likely that a lot of this vocab will have been forgotten. So llevar is to wear. Vestirse means to dress, but it's to dress oneself. Okay. So it has to be, if you're saying, I am going to dress myself, I'm going to dress in elegant clothes, whatever it is, then it'd be vestir me. We have to remember to change that, okay? La ropa is clothes. Recibir is to receive, so hopefully now you can work out what recibo is. I receive. Regalos are presents. Dar is an infinitive verb, looks, ends in AR, very short verb. So it's to give. It is not irregular in most of its forms, except for I give, which is doy, D-O-Y. But the rest then, look, we just take off the AR, add an A to be he or she gives me. But remember, the person comes first in Spanish verbs. Me, he or she gives, me dan, they give me. And we could put a person before this. If I was going to say, my grandma gives me, then I'd say, mi abuela me da. My parents gives me, mis padres me dan. Okay. Dinero is money. Cenar, we have seen before in our food topic, it means to have dinner. Disfrutar means to enjoy, and sometimes it's followed by de when you're saying something like she enjoys a healthy lifestyle at an old age. You know, she, as in like she still has that. Normally we don't use the de after, so I've given you an example here. I enjoy going out to be disfruto salir. Okay? So we've got a nice list of vocabulary there we can now use to put together our answers, but let's look at a few examples in a reading and translation to help us with that vocabulary. So what I want you to do is just skim read this text, these texts rather, and you should see in there lots of vocabulary just covered, plus some other things that are prior knowledge, one or two other bits of new vocabulary that you can hopefully work out from the context. Okay, once you've had a skim read, have a general gist of each paragraph, we'll go over some questions. Okay, so ahora las preguntas, the questions. So you've got 5 who questions, so you just need to put the name for these, and then you're answering in English for these ones here. You don't need to write full sentences. So the reading comprehension is attached to the lesson on Moodle. So if you want to work on it there, you can. Otherwise, you can just write the answers out in your books, okay? Okay, so let's go through this then. Now, if there's anything you are struggling on, you might find that after you've done a couple of them, or that once we've done the first 5, that gives you some clues about what's being talked about, and you want to pause to retry 6 to 9, okay? So let's go through it then. Who prefers to go out with their friends? It's Marianna. She says, prefiero salir con mis amigos que salir con mi familia. Now you might have put Carolina, because she says, on the one hand, I prefer to celebrate with my friends, but on the other hand, me chifla, I'm mad about spending time with my family. So she doesn't say specifically she prefers it, like Marianna. Who get lots of money? Juan mentions that. Eats ice cream on the beach. So playa is a word that comes up in the holidays topics. You might not have known that. And helado comes from the food and drink topic we did. So that was Marianna. Carolina likes the same things as her friends. So she puts here, I prefer celebrating with my friends because they like the same things as me. A ellas les gusta, they like, it pleases them literally, the same things as me. He always gives them a list. There we are. It said they want, so change it to he wants. Okay. Why does Marianna prefer going out with her friends to celebrate? So it says, she mentions the word emocionante. It's mucho más emocionante. It's a lot more exciting. What does she always have? So a chocolate cake. It's her favourite. And then on Marianna as well, she spends her money on ropa, clothes. That's part of question 8. What does Carolina's mum do for her? Makes her a delicious dinner and a big cake. So that's, if you weren't sure, that is here. Mi madre me cocina, cooks me una cena deliciosa y después un pastel grande, and after a big cake. And then the last question then, she talks about her hermano mayor siempre me da los mejores regalos. So her hermano mayor is her older brother, always gives her the best presents, los mejores regalos. Okay? Muy bien. Okay, so we're now going to do a translation. So this is a sample translation. This is from the WGAC, and this is the standard that they would expect you to be able to translate in Year 11 in a higher tier writing exam. Okay, so if it was a foundation tier, it would be single sentences, and there would not be 3 tenses in it like there are here. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to try and translate this, but let's have a little look first of all at what tenses we're looking at here. Okay, so you've got cuando era más joven, celebraba mis cumpleaños con mi familia. What tense do you recognize when we see aba and this irregular era? Now, hopefully, the aba has made you remember that it's talking about imperfect. What do we mean by imperfect? So it's definitely a past tense. There's actually a clue later on this slide. but it's always talking about things that used to or was. Okay, so it's talking about used to celebrate her birthday. So that should give you a clue, hopefully, about what the era means. It is irregular, but we do need to know it. It has more than one meaning, could be about more than one person, but think about the fact that you've got me here, okay? Then you have ahora. Now, if you didn't know what prefiero meant, ahora, this is why we need to know time connectives, should trigger you to realize it is switched tense because of what ahora means, okay? But they have got prefiero, which earlier on we learnt was I prefer, so therefore we have now switched into the present tense. So if you didn't know what ahora meant, that could give you a clue, okay? So we've got the imperfect, then a switch to the present tense. Prefiero salir con mis amigos, porque me encanta pasar tiempo con ellos. All vocabulary that we have done today. Mi madre siempre me cocina un pastel de cumpleaños enorme, porque cocina muy bien y sabe lo que me gusta. Hopefully nothing in that sentence will cause any problems except for the sabe lo que me gusta. Me gusta, we will know. Perhaps lo que, but it's the sabe that this is the kind of thing that you'd be expected in an exam to work out from the context. If you can work out every other word in that sentence, it's working out then a good translator is able to realise, right, what logically in English is going to make sense there. Is it a verb? How do I know it's a verb? And so on, and what then would make sense in English. Okay, so see if you can work that out. Then we have este año, and again, we have a time connective here, so that should trigger us to realise which tense am I now talking about. Preferiría, so I have an infinitive verb, preferir, and then I have an extra ending on ia. So that should tell me which one of two tenses, well, which one of two types of this kind of tense I've switched to now. Este año preferiría vestirme elegante y cenar en un restaurante muy caro. So think carefully there about what she's saying. Look at that ending. We've seen it in a phrase that we use a lot when we use in the food topic, for example. If you need a bit more help, I will give you a clue in a second. But start translating, unpause if you need a hint, and then when you're ready, come back and check. Okay? So to give you a hint here, preferiría, if I say me gustaría, which has the same ending, we've got gustar, an infinitive verb with the ia ending on it. What does me gustaría mean? Hopefully you remember that it means I would like. So therefore, I'm talking about the conditional here. Therefore, that would be I would prefer. And then the rest of this vocabulary we have covered today, or we haven't talked about caro before, but we have mentioned it in the past, okay? And then with este año, we should know año, because if I say tengo 13 años or tengo 14 años, we're talking about our age. In other words, years. Okay, the word cumpleaños actually means celebrate years, okay? So something year, I would prefer. So there's two options you could put for this. And hopefully it's like a 50-50 chance in an exam of getting it right, okay? Right, let's go through this then. Now I'm going to give you the sample answer that the WJC give, but there is always a bit of room for manoeuvre if there is a translation you have given that is close enough. So when I was younger, I celebrated my birthday with my family. Cuando era, so when I was more young. If you put more young, you probably would get the answer, but we don't say that in English. We say I was younger, I celebrated, or I used to celebrate. That would be fine as well. My birthday with my family. Now I prefer going out with my friends because I love spending time with them. There isn't really any other options for that. Now I prefer to go out with my friends. It's fine too, because I love spending time with them, but there's not many other things. You could just say to go out, okay? My mother always makes me a huge birthday cake. You could put my mum, that's fine too. Okay, mi madre siempre me cocina un pastel de cumpleaños enorme. You could say big, enormous. That would still probably get you the mark too. Because she's a really good cook and she knows what I like. So well done if you got the she knows. because the rest of that, hopefully you were able to get. So here, because she cooks really well, that would be a fine translation as well. And something what I like, you could have put makes what I like, but then hopefully you would have remembered, wait, I already know that verb hacer is to make. That doesn't look like that. So well done if you're able to logically work out. It means knows what I like. Lo que, what, me gusta, I like. Then este año means this year. It doesn't mean next year. The word next, can you remember? It's próximo. Yeah, so el año próximo would be next year, or el año siguiente, the following year, okay? So este año means this year. So obviously she hasn't had a birthday yet. This year. So this year I would prefer to dress up smartly, or you could say to dress up elegantly. That's fine too. And to have dinner or to eat dinner, that's okay too, in a very expensive restaurant. If you'd put and to eat, they might not have given you the mark because it's higher tier, because it uses cenar, not comer. Now, we're going to do some writing on our conversation questions, which will cover what is said here, except for the imperfect. So once you've done the questions, if you want that extra challenge or you have the time, I want you to come back and see if you can write a similar paragraph, or particularly just write a shorter paragraph on how you used to spend your birthday. So this doesn't talk about it much. It just says she used to celebrate with her family, but what did she do? Did she have a little party? Did she have her friends around her house? What was it that she did? Okay. So now that we have covered all of that vocabulary from today, it's a lot of new vocab because we're starting this topic, and it's not a big one. We're starting and finishing next week in 2 weeks, over 2 weeks rather. We should now be able to answer these questions in your booklets. So if you don't have your booklet at home, here are the questions. As usual, you can either write your answers straight into the booklet and then I mark it in there, or if you want marked versions in your book that haven't got all the corrections over them, or a chance to improve before you finish, put them in there, then write them in your book, type them somewhere else, I mark them, and then you rewrite them up in your booklet. But make sure you take the time to write them up in your booklet in your own time, because you can't take extra time in lessons because of everything we have to cover. So make sure you have that. So when the speaking exam comes around next year, when your speaking mock comes up in the summer, hopefully you'll be able to do one, then you have everything in your booklet ready, okay? My PowerPoint was full of typos today, look. Got a G before. There we are. Okay. So you're going to start these with the time you have left today, as well as the quiz that is on Moodle. So maybe go to the quiz first, actually will be better, and then come back to these. And any you don't finish, please finish before we come back to school next Tuesday, okay? So we should be able to answer this one. ¿Qué haces normalmente para tu cumpleaños? What do you do normally for your birthday? We've covered lots of vocabulary you can talk about there. Obviously, if there are other things you do, like go to the cinema, obviously we can't at the moment, but normally go to the cinema or have people to stay over, whatever it is, that you can talk about other things, that's fine. Either look them up on word reference if you're not sure of them, or ask me and Miss in Teams, that's fine, okay? We're going to skip question 2 for now, because we haven't covered the past tense, but you might, because you covered it last week with sir, you could give it a go, otherwise we will come back to it if you are a bit unsure. But if you're confident covering question 2, which what did you do for your birthday last year, it's basically turning those verbs we've looked at into the past tense, or if they're irregular, like fui al cine con mis amigos, era muy emocionante, comimos, whatever we ate, okay? Do you prefer to celebrate with your family or friends? So you're going to turn this into I prefiero celebrar mi cumpleaños con, whichever one it is, and why. You have some examples in the reading that we did, okay? Do you celebrate Easter? Now, although we haven't gone into this one, and the same with the Christmas one in lots of detail, it's very similar vocabulary to the birthdays, because you say, sí, celebro la Pascua. What do you do? Normalmente, well, most people for Easter depending whether or not you are a Christian. You could say, I go to church, I have a meal with my family, we have chocolate eggs. Otherwise, you could say, I don't do much, I celebrate Easter with my family, we have chocolate eggs, and we go on holiday, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be detailed, okay? What would your ideal birthday now like? Now, I mentioned earlier that we are going to talk about this one more next week. We're going to do a lot of work on the conditional tense, so you can leave this one for today. And then question 7, ¿Cómo vas a celebrar la Navidad próxima? How are you going to celebrate next Christmas? So remember your future tense, voy a plus the infinitive. So I am going to send birthday cards, send Christmas cards, have a big meal. Obviously, that's if we're allowed again to do our normal things. Go to church, eat loads, give gifts, and so on. Okay. You can talk about who it's going to be with, any gifts you'd like to give or receive, and so on. Okay. So we should be able to do 1, 3, 5, 7. Leave 6 for next week, and you could probably try number 2 as well because you recapped the preterite tense with Sir last week. Okay. So do the quiz first and then do as much on these answers as you can, finish them before we see each other finally next Tuesday, okay? Muy bien, Yaten. Adiós.